Daniel, you wrote a very interesting piece recently. And in the beginning, you were sharing your research on the Marxist roots, if you will, of the degradation of the family. What, and perhaps that is the start of the erosion of the family unit. Share with us what your research demonstrated.
Yeah, so going back to Karl Marx in the Communist Manifesto, he talks about the family really as an oppressive institution because the family kind of passes along its values to its children, and Karl Marx sees it as bourgeois values, and something that society then needs to disrupt, needs to break apart that bourgeois family structure, and he argues that um, the society needs to stop parents from exploiting their children. And instead, the state then would need to take over education and disrupt the family. Now, there's other thinkers that have kind of carried those ideas forward. And really, once you start losing that focus on the natural family, that's something that can lead to government interference in the family and the government trying to take control of various parts of the family. It's something that you referenced the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in the intro. And that document was written actually shortly after World War II. And in 1948 is when it was written. And it's not really surprising then that they focused on the family. It's something that the Nazi regime in Germany focused on trying to indoctrinate children within the
Mm-hmm.
family, focused on trying to get children to also tell the state about what their parents were talking about and really find dissenters that way. There's other historical examples, like from communist Czechoslovakia, where some of Marx's ideas came to play, where the state uh, tried to gave parents longer working days, gave
Mm-hmm.
students longer school days, just so there was less relationship within the family. State housing policy was really to try to keep families in small housing units so that they couldn't have large families, so they couldn't have lots of children. Even the infrastructure of the housing itself was such that it was easier to eavesdrop on conversations that were happening. So really disrupting that idea that the family can have its own views, its own beliefs, and disagree even with a dominant state.
Well, my father grew up in under communism. He's grew up in Croatia, but at that time it was being ravaged by communist Yugoslavia. And I know that my grandfather was not able to work. He was not permitted to get a job locally and had to go to another country, and that disrupted the family unit. And you're right that communism just really seeking to control every aspect of the family unit. I can see it. I chat with my father about this routinely about and seeing what is being mirrored in modern society. So let me ask you this: what resistance in those totalitarian regimes? Because I know what my father's family did, but what resistance do families provide to totalitarian regimes?
I think the biggest thing is that families are can have a different perspective, a different opinion. So going back to the example of Nazi Germany, Alphonse Heck wrote an autobiography about his life in the Hitler Youth and how he eventually realized how wrong that was. And he says the only chance that children had in Nazi Germany was for their families to actually be brave enough to disagree with the regime and to pass that along to their children. And I think you
Wow.
see that in communist states as well, where families disagree with the regime. They pass that along to their children, and kind of the author Rod Dreher in his book "Live Not by Lies," he calls families resistance cells. So it's a small unit where there's relationship and where there can be resistance against government because they share common values and common beliefs and are a unit of resistance essentially.
Okay, Daniel, this was excellent discussion. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Fascinating discussion. Who knew that the family unit was so central, so important in society? And then we look to the government policy and say, well, are we actually helping build that family unit, or are we actually tearing it down?